All right. Hi, Christina. I see that you're here. I don't know how many people will be here. Sometimes it's a handful of people, and sometimes people watch it like on the playback.
Okay.
So, if you'd like to introduce yourself and kind of just talk about some of the things that you do or projects that you've been working on for
Uh,
everybody.
I'm Mike Gann. I'm the founder of Tactical Bigfoot Research. I'm also the co-host of Where's My Sage? Taste of a Universe, which is another podcast that I do
Hmm.
with medium Christine London. I am a Bigfoot investigator, and I also do some paranormal investigations as well.
Okay.
Um, work with a couple of different groups, but our main group is Tactical Bigfoot Research. And actually, Christine London, my co-host, just popped in your chat there. I just noticed.
Oh.
So
Hi.
yeah, she kind of keeps me under control
Mm,
when we're out there.
that's
I
good.
do most of my investigations in the Northeast, but about once a year I try to get down to Florida and work with another podcaster down there
Okay.
to get out in the woods. I come from a scientific background. I come back from a law enforcement and archaeology background.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have a team of scientists that I work with, and we're out there, looking at the phenomena and documenting what we can. I'm also working with a couple of scientists from a couple of major universities and Doug Hychek from Monster Quest
Oh, cool. Yeah, I love
on,
Monster Quest.
on a hair project. We're working on taking these hair samples and comparing them with UV lights and some cell phone cameras to see what we can get some evidence from.
Oh,
So
that's really cool.
right now, it's an experiment.
Yeah.
If we can get some folks to come in, so it's the pink Sasquatch hair experiment. But the best thing about it is teaching folks how to collect data when they're out in the field. So,
That's
be it
awesome.
if you're doing paranormal investigations or cryptid investigations,
Right.
just how to collect your best evidence. So, I've been doing it for a couple of years. I was in the on the trail of Bigfoot, The Journey with Small Town Monsters with Seth
Yeah.
Breedlove. And yeah, we've been doing this for a while, kind of bouncing around, work with a couple of different groups. So,
Now, is this something that anybody can get their hands on, this pink testing thing, or is
yeah,
that something that you're kind of working on to make it available or
no, I've got a whole package put together. Folks
Mhm.
can reach out to me at sasquatchhair2021 at gmail.com.
Okay.
And I can actually, actually share your screen, what's involved. But we're looking at, there's all the steps to go out and collect the hair. So we're even asking folks that have known hair samples, be
Yeah.
it if they're hunters, if they have bear hair, deer, or raccoon. We've got some porcupine we collected, and how we go about collecting that evidence for something down the line. So how to photograph,
Yeah.
and all that. And again, that goes towards the paranormal thing as well. So, oh, I heard this crick or whatever. How did you photograph the area that you were in? So we're big into the data collection.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, but
Yeah.
anybody can do it. So it's to get a family out, and when I look at Bigfoot research, it's to get friends and family out in the woods to enjoy what's out there in nature, so we don't
Yeah.
miss it. So I'm used to using my regular green screen, so I'm using. I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm not in my studio. Unfortunately, we're freezing here, so my puppies are in that room right now, so they're
Oh.
getting warm. So got a little thing. So I apologize if I'm stopping and looking here. So
No, it's
not
okay. It's
not
fine.
just the
It
back
looks
shadow.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of people so I actually just went and kind of did my first my mother calls it squatching is what she calls it. But I just did my first kind of like Bigfoot thing. And for me, Bigfoot's really scary. But I really enjoyed being outside because I usually, I don't know, that's just not something that I do. I just don't go outside. I like have a garden outside, but I live in the city. So I don't go out on like nature hikes or anything. So it was really nice to just enjoy everything.
Yeah, it's really, you really can get out there and commune with nature
Hmm.
and ground yourself. And um, if you're out doing cemeteries at night, if you're doing haunted houses, it's about the same thing. But the same, you
Yeah.
want to make sure you're taking folks with you, and it's a great tool to teach folks about CPR, first aid, tracking. There's just so much into it. If we find something,
Right.
we don't find something. There's still a lot of great stuff that's out there, bird calls, the whole bit. So when I'm out there, I'm trying to educate the best we can. More for the debunk end, but you're learning a skill and stuff as well. So
Yeah. So, how much experience do you have with like Bigfooting or just like going out in the woods in general?
I'm out there probably 3, 4 times a month. I am a member of a couple of different groups. So when I got pulled into this a couple of years back, I got pulled in with Steve Culls, the Squatch Detective. So he's written a couple of books. He's been on God knows how many shows, from Monster Quest to
Yeah.
consulting with Finding Bigfoot, America's Book of Secrets, and he said he's done a couple. And then I'm also a member of NESRA. Those guys are some of the original groups that were started back when the internet forums started, the old message boards. And then I'm also part of Eric Altman's Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society as well.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, so I try to get out and at least, depending on the weather. Right now we're kind of in the negative here up in the Northeast. So
Yeah, I would
you
imagine it's
know,
probably a lot colder over there.
yeah, we were supposed to be down in the Chestnut Ridge of Pennsylvania last weekend, and just with the weather here, it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
So I try to get out at least a couple of times a month, or for a couple of hours in the field. I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time on thermal cameras and night vision cameras. We do a lot of road work, as well as a lot of hiking if we can, everywhere from the Adirondacks to Western New York. So from Lake Ontario to the Hudson River in New York is pretty much where I kind of cover most of the time.
That's a lot of
So
area.
yeah, if we can get there in 4 hours, that's generally the circuit we were
Yeah.
going to do. So
So, I have met quite a few different people in the whole Bigfoot field. And I know that when people hear Bigfoot, they kind of just jumble everybody together, but there are actually different types of people. So, from my understanding, there's people who believe in Bigfoot like flesh and blood biological creature.
yeah.
And then there are people who associate Bigfoot with being paranormal, like walking into trees or being connected um, spiritually or maybe like to aliens and stuff. What is your view on that kind of thing?
So I am the flesh and blood camp.
Hmm.
However, I come from over 30 years of martial arts experience, and I'm also an energy healer as well. So there could be, and again, I got a background in archaeology and anthropology, minored in that in college,
Yeah.
that there's still some other abilities until we actually have a body on a slab in front of us to say, yeah, can they do that? Can they not do that? There's a
Right.
lot of things that are there. So when folks say, oh, this happens this way, I go in and say, how do we look at that? So when folks say, oh, their footprints disappeared, I suggest everybody take at least 6 foot of rope or a 6 foot tape measure with them in the woods. When you do find that print, you make a big circle. You find that print, and then I carry little flags with me. I mark it, and then
Mhm.
go to the next spot and make it, see if we can find it, and keep doing circles around, because prints are not going to always go that way. So there, it takes care of the disappearing thing.
Yeah.
If you've ever watched a deer walk behind a bush, they can disappear. I mean, it's natural camouflage. You think about a tiger's orange, but yet they can disappear into the jungle foliage, which is green. How do they
Yeah.
do that? It's not something that's there. The infrasound, again, that's natural. That's animal sound. So taking different sound recorders and that is there. Now, I have talked to quite a few folks that are into, I wouldn't say portals as much, but quantum physics, and we're still getting to know quantum physics.
Yeah.
And if you watch a yogi stop and breathe, and like I said, a good martial artist or a dancer that can stop in a pose for how long, that body control. I mean, watch
Yeah.
your cat at home. So, oh, we lost it. Well, did you lose it or did you really lose it? I mean, that's the thing. And again, until we come across something permanent, you just have to document those things. So, somebody asked if I was in the woods. The background behind us, that's the location in Chautauqua County, New York, where we found some sticks and stuff like that. That were more tree branches that were thrown into the field. But we heard whistles and screams, and we didn't find anything that day. But it was really an interesting location.
So, I know, I completely agree with what you're saying, because when I do paranormal, there's always this is hard to explain, but there's always that theory, oh, ghosts can walk through walls, or they can do this or that. And I always try to question everything. I'm like, is it really this, or we're just misunderstanding it in a way? So I do agree with you on being able to just document it and just take it for face value and not really think about it too much until you gather more evidence about it. So is there anything that you have caught or you have found, I guess would be more the question, that really solidifies Bigfoot for you?
Every time I get ready to walk away from the subject, something happens that I can't explain, which kind of brings me in more and more to the field. My first experience with a scream was in Pennsylvania. We were on a big camping event that Eric Altman puts on down there, and I was talking to another investigator, and as we were sitting there, the scream came out of nowhere, and when we had a group of families, so we, got everybody in a circle, and then we had everybody scream out. When they screamed back out, we got some more callbacks. But as we walked out of the woods, the camera we were down, we turned the flashlights on. We found some prints across the trail. Okay, we stopped, we looked, we documented. We didn't have any casting material with us at that time.
Yeah.
Which kind of goes on to how do I do some of my evidence collection now. But that was one. I was on the top of a hill in the Adirondacks with a couple other investigators and got a face full of rocks. We were miles from anybody else, and come skipping across the top of the car, and one hit me in the forehead and another, and then get around the thermal camera, and it's not there. We've got some video. I was up in another part of the Adirondacks with Steve, and we were doing a live for his show, and we had something ripping right through the trees.
Ooh.
But as those things come in, you just stop, you document them. Some of the trackways, again, in that Chautauqua, we found a nice print that's been documented, and now we're working on the hair project. But again, it's documentation. Is it a repeatable thing? But not everything that goes bump in the night is Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And I've talked to a lot of witnesses that you just kind of go, okay, these guys are worried about losing their jobs because of their professions, be it lawyers or police officers, doctors, public officials. Hey, I saw it. This is what I saw. This is what they describe. And you look for what reactions they have to those sightings. So as I talk more and more to those folks, it kind of pulls me a little bit, farther into the subject.
Well, I just had an interview with a guy who's pretty diverse in the subject of Bigfoot. And he stated, if I remember correctly, which I probably don't, he said that, I think he said 95% of people who have an experience with Bigfoot don't document it. They don't report it in any way, or they don't talk about it, they don't go to the proper authorities or things like that. What do you think about that?
There's a lot of folks. I mean, how many folks do you meet years later in the paranormal community that have had an experience with a spirit of some sort, or have an apparition, or catch something moving through the house, and it's like, okay, can't explain that. If I say something, somebody's going to think I'm crazy, or I got to worry about my job. And in some places, you're worried about, do I want a lot of people digging around my property? And
Yeah.
that's a lot of times I get folks, hey, please don't tell us where I live. We don't want anybody to know, because we don't want people running around our woods, especially if it's Bigfoot related, because everybody's, some of these people are going to run around there with guns, and, the kids are
Yeah.
out there, the dogs out there, and the cows. So, I mean, that's a big thing, is why a lot of people keep those things really quiet inside. So,
I feel like that's kind of the same with the paranormal though. So I understand that. Like people come to me and they'll be like, "Oh, here's a story that I've had and like what is your opinion on it?" But like please don't tell anybody kind of thing because a lot of people don't want to be viewed as being crazy or and like you said safety is another issue. But that's kind of a little different with the Bigfoot around property
yeah.
and stuff like that.
And the other thing is, I always look is that, look at their sightings, look where they're looking. What are they trying to get out? Because sometimes are they looking to get on a show? Sometimes you got to look at that kind of information.
Yeah.
You're downtown Manhattan and you got Bigfoot walking across the street. You're kind of like, oh, where did it get to you from? There's no green path between here and there, but that's always something we need to look at. And again, documenting those things. Now, if there's a stream or a river that they can get through, well, that's a whole nother thing to go in and look again. And you're documenting where that pathway is going to go. And are there other sightings? There's some really good apps out there that a couple of guys are doing on mapping from all the sightings from across the different sighting websites like BFRO
Oh, that's
and some
really
of the
cool.
others. So, yeah. PNW Maps, I think, is doing that one. So.
So, is there an experience for you that kind of got scary? To me, like Bigfoot is scary, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just like the mystery of it. Did you have an experience that was like maybe unsafe for you?
No, I really haven't come across anything like that. I mean, you're going to go out in the woods, take somebody with you. That way, if you trip or fall, the same thing if you're doing the paranormal stuff,
Mhm.
make sure you're out there. I mean, it's, I took those rocks in the face and it was kind of an eye opener, like, why am I getting hit?
Yeah.
And I've had other friends that, that have had that kind of thing happen. Um, I used to hunt wild boar. You get one of those things stalking you in the woods, it can happen. It's there, and it's the experience of what's out there. I've been scared more underwater than I have in the woods. So I spent years as a recovery diver. Sometimes you get bounced by a
Oh,
fish underwater. Yeah, it's a little more scary than being in the woods. But yeah, you hear something. You hear your first owl scream, and you're not used to barred owl screaming. It can really get you turned around because they have occasionally that primate sound when they get screaming.
huh.
I just had the pleasure of volunteering in a zoo as a kid, and some of that time was spent in a primate house. Every
Yeah.
weekend during the winter, so you got to hear what the chimpanzees and the orangutans and the gibbons sounded like. So listen for that is always been a big thing of mine, and that's why I use, like, Cornell has an app, Cornell University.
Mhm.
It's the Merlin Bird app, and you can use that to kind of listen and analyze the sounds that are out there.
That's really cool. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I worked at a zoo for like 5 years and we had gibbons. So I'm really familiar with what gibbons sound like because I would hear them going off like all day. They're super crazy. And I've heard different claimed howls and different things like that. And sometimes they sound really like gibbon like. And I'm really
Yep.
surprised at how they sound like because they're so close.
It really does. We had one down in Chautauqua, and it started right up, and then the owls kicked in later. And it's again why running the recorders and then running that stuff through Audacity or some of the other spectral software to really take a look and compare it to
Mhm.
known sounds. I mean, that's a really good thing to do when you're doing that data collection kind of stuff.
So
So.
when you're talking about looking at it, what specifically are you looking for when you're physically looking at the changes in the pitch and stuff like that.
You're looking for the sound comparison, so you can go right into the apps and you can really get a spectrogram and kind of look at where those things are. And if you have something that's interesting, I know a lot of guys with the Olympic Project, they do a lot of that on their website. David Ellis is a good guy to really look at how they do the analyzation of some of their sounds. And again, if you go into the Cornell app and pick up an egret or a heron, you could really go in and take a look at those sounds compared to what you may have. And a lot of times it will come back as an owl, as a barred owl. When you're, oh, I heard this, it's crazy. Or, folks that really don't know fox screams or, bobcats that sound like a dying woman in the woods. Always good to go back and kind of compare that stuff. So
see, I'm pretty illiterate when it comes to stuff like that. So anything that I hear, I'm automatically thinking Bigfoot, just because I'm so terrified. But I really don't know my animals at all. So that is a great piece of advice for somebody, especially like me, who knows essentially nothing.
But that's the big thing is getting, like I said, the best part of this education and going on this path is getting as much information. There's certain sounds that I didn't know, and grabbing that data as we moved along. It's education. Every time you go out in the woods for this, it's there. But that time that you do hear one of those screams, roars, or whatever you want to hear it, and you can feel it in your chest, and you're like, man, I don't know what that is. And you look at the guy standing across from you, and their eyes kind of, you're like,
yeah.
What's that?
Okay.
I'm in the Northeast. I know there's not supposed to be A, B, and C, and it's there. So something to really kind of take a look at.
So as far as physical evidence goes, what is it? What are the types of things that you are looking for physically?
So physically, when I'm out there, I am looking for hair samples. I am looking for, folks say, I'm not looking for tree structures per se. We're in the Northeast. There's a lot of, like right now with a snow load, or if you get an ice storm, you can have a lot of stuff that breaks and comes down this way. I'm going to turn that green screen off here because my hands are just there, and we're going to, give me 1 second there. Yeah. Sorry about that virtual background. Done.
Oh, it's okay.
Go. All right. So that way people can see my hands here and not have that going on. So when you're going through the woods, you're going to look at that 5 to 10 foot range, and you can actually look lower, because think about when you go through the woods and you push something out of the way. Even spider webs, we're going to push them out of the way. We're just going to push them out. But when we snap things, we're going to snap them at a horizontal going right out in front of us. We're getting that stuff out of the way. It's not generally coming down. Snow load is generally going to come down. So I'm looking for that. As I'm looking for those snaps, now I'm going to look for hair somewhere around that. If it is structural, if I find hardwoods like maples and oak and birch, and there's a whole bunch of pine boughs underneath, that's something I'm going to take a look at. We were in the Chautauqua area, and we came across the magnolia seed pods.
Okay.
So a magnolia tree, but these particular seed pods actually have insect repellent properties to them and some other healing properties. So we found what looked like a nest site with these. It's almost like a citronella kind of thing. So why are they there? They're not near any other bushes. They're kind of things like that. You're going to kind of document. Yes, I'm looking for the footprints. Some folks, carry casting material. There are now 3D scanners that you can buy for a couple of $1,000, or there's some apps that you can buy that go right on your phone. And if that's what you have is your phone in the field, you can it's a photopictometry. You're taking about 20 photos of what print you may be looking at. And we've used that we thought we had a big cat once. And by taking those 20 photos and putting it into a 3D app, we could actually see it was a dog print because there was a nail print. So getting to know those tracks. So that's kind of stuff we're looking for. Again, that hair, strange scat, smells, again, structure so much I'm not looking for, just because we are in the Northeast. There's a lot of windfall, but Folks that I know have found stuff that's been interwoven on the West Coast. Seeing that kind of thing is kind of important for what we're looking for, and again, sound evidence, we're going to look. It's just, that's kind of different. Again, chalking them up and then putting those points down. Some folks are into tree knocks. They think and they hear that loud wood knock. However, recently we noticed if you're near a pine forest at certain times of year, those pine cones coming ripping through the trees will sound like the wood knocks everybody talks about, because as they come down,
yeah.
they're a solid pine cone, and as they're hitting the woods, they're making that knock, or you sounds like something's following you and you getting that thump. Well, when a pine cone hits, the way they're shaped and they're as heavy as they are, they're under half pound for some, maybe a little heavier. They hit that ground, they're sticking on that ground, so it almost sounds like something's following you through the woods. So, but again, that's the kind of thing you're looking for. How do we say something following us or isn't something following us? Are we finding those impressions? And again, that's where we're using a lot of thermal scammers and night vision, and then the 3D scanners to kind of look at any prints to see if we can figure out where we're going.
Yeah, I've never thought about it in any of that. Like, I really didn't even realize that like there were apps, or that they even. I want to say that I've seen 3D scanners maybe on like a TV show before, but I didn't even know that it even got that intricate, which is crazy. And I because I'm just kind of dipping my toes into different things that kind of fall under the umbrella of paranormal. I'm trying to just branch out and just introduce people to what you guys do, and kind of show the relation and how similar it is to ghost hunting or doing paranormal investigations, because it's a lot alike. You do a lot of debunking from what I hear.
Yeah, that's the big thing. And again, my co-host and I, we do a lot of live investigations for haunted houses and stuff, and it's a lot of things that I'll go into. I'll take a lot of the same equipment. I'll take my thermal cameras in, and we heard something knocking in the walls. Well, grab the thermal camera. I'm going to scan the wall, and here's all the plumbing fixtures running through the back of the wall, or here's the bee's nest inside the wall. So it's that same, where are we going? What are we documenting? What equipment is there? How do we debunk the equipment? It's, I've had a couple of things. Oh, the EMF meter's going off, and you're like, well, let me go look. Well, here's the whole power grid that's underneath the stairs. Oh, I feel like there's vibrating and stuff like that. Yeah, well, somebody didn't, wire the building right, or the plumbing's running under there. I mean, that's how it is. But there's been places we go, I can't. Okay, here it goes. It goes in the book, and we'll take a look at that. Longer. And then, like I said, working with a medium, it makes it a little different. But there's a lot of times we'll go to a different locations that may have both a paranormal end, because you may have a cemetery in the middle of a forest, and why are this, things coming up there? Or was there some kind of former burial ground that might be somewhere near there? So all stuff to kind of look at where stuff is, Even going back and looking at the folklore in the area can sometimes really integrate where things are going. And I mean, that's been a big thing recently, is looking at the native folklore, or the early settler folklore in our area, to say, okay, this is pre-internet, and it's always going pre-internet, because, and there's now with clickbait, you got to really spin around. So if it's, pre 2000, I might take it a little, closer look at it than I would, pre this wonderful format of YouTube,
Oh yeah.
And what you can do with CGI is a whole nother thing. How do I take a look at that information on both sides of the house? So.
Well, and that's another thing, is like, how many videos do you see of paranormal or Bigfoot like on TikTok? I think, in my personal opinion, things like that kind of hurt the community in a way, because they don't fully explain what's going on, where they were at, why they were filming. It's literally just like 10 seconds of this footage, and this is what you see, but you don't see the things leading up to it. And a lot of people tend to just believe everything they see, and they don't question it. And I think it's kind of had this negative impact on the paranormal. I don't know if it's done that for the Bigfoot community or not, but I know that I talk to a lot of people who are like, oh, you know, my light turned off by itself. Oh my God, I have a ghost. What do I do? Kind of thing. And it's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean those 10-second videos, or even the trail cam footage, or folks. Oh, I got this on. Okay, let me see what you have before. Let me see what you have after. What is the story before and after? Oh, we were on a family vacation, and you pull up the photo before, and it's the car collision or the gardening or something like that. It's not the kids at the beach, it's not the dog running through the mud at the lake. And then what are the photos after? And you're like, okay, I want to know what's before. What was the time of year? I mean, a lot of that stuff is not what's the context the person is there, and that's really a big thing.
Yeah.
And if you're getting a still shot, I'll go back to my buddy.
Oh no, did I lose you?
You hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. So, that's the big thing is, back search some of that footage, because it seems like every 5 to 6 years, this stuff seems to recycle.
Yeah, it like resurfaces and you're like, wait, I've seen this so long ago. Like, why are you guys going crazy about it now? It's like people forget, or I don't know.
Yeah, and it's just, there's a new TV show on, and so that stuff's going to cycle just before a new TV show.
Yeah.
But again, if you guys find something, the best thing I always say is just go through and run it on Google Lens, or run it, Google Images or TinEye or something like that.
Yeah.
And, look at that image, I got this picture in September, and you go and you look at if you get the actual photo and all the time date stamps and everything else like that, and uploads are, July.
Yeah.
Okay, something's not making sense here.
And it's tough because there are kind of all these incentive programs right now for TikTok and Facebook and Instagram where they want you posting. So they're paying you to post if you have a lot of followers, and people want stuff that's going to get views.
Right.
So it makes it really, really difficult to sift through that. Sometimes I get people sending me videos and they're like, what do you think about this? Or do you think that this is real? And it's so hard to determine when you're not the person that's actually taking the video, because you could interpret it in any type of way. And it's just think about what the people in Hollywood do, like how they can make one specific shot just so immersive and you feel like you're actually there. And the way that they film, they're not doing those things, but it just feels so real. And people can do the same thing at home. And I think people forget that.
Well, I mean, as we, upgrade our cell phones. I mean, you go look at this new, iPhone, the 13, and you got built-in LiDAR. I mean, you got a scanning setup, and you've got new setups where some of the new DSLRs where they've got double fisheye lenses, and you can really give yourself a 3D, look to things. And then how easy it was me just to do a virtual background, and that wasn't even using my green screen and one of the better cameras. So knowing how to do your lighting and that, and again, another 5 minutes on YouTube on how you can go ahead and put that extra little whatever and just build. And again, that's going back and looking at that metadata on that film or that photo to say, hey, was this altered in any way? And as soon as you turn around and lighten and darken something, you've altered it. So the other thing I suggest to a lot of people, I got this. Well, did you turn and actually reverse the colors? So if you reverse and make it a negative and what it is, sometimes you can actually see some more definition of what's going on the photo. So,
yeah, I had to do that once. I actually caught, what did I catch? Oh, I was at Indiana State Sanatorium, and I was having issues with my light just died. So it was like completely dark, but you could just barely, you could like see me because it was an IR. And actually something walked in front of the camera super fast. And I kept trying to take it into the editor and brighten it up, but it was like as bright as it could go. And I couldn't really see much definition, but you could definitely tell that something walked past. And I put it in negative, and that's when I could really see it. And I was like, oh shit. But I don't think people want to watch negative. So I didn't end up keeping it in the negative, but you could really see it in the negative.
Yeah, and it's funny because you'll even find like, do you see that the blip there?
Oh yeah.
Okay. My phone is not on. That's a blank screen. So right now that's where it is. But as I bring it up, you'll actually see. So depending on the camera, and that's how we got into starting to do the UV thing, was looking at some of the different camera filters, and that is always on. That's so your phone will register. And I've noticed and had a lot of folks send me stuff from iPhones. Oh, we got a lot of orbs. For some reason, iPhones pick up a lot of extra little other stuff that's out there. And if you take that same photo with a Droid, you're not going to get the photos you're going to get with it with any of your phone. So again, getting to know your technology is always a big thing, when we're out there.
What was I reading? I was reading this article, but I don't remember who it was by. And they were talking about how the evolution of cameras, how cameras, used to be really big and they've gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, has actually caused orbs to show up more. And I think they said it's the placement between where the camera is and where the actual, or like where the lens is to where the flash is. So where the light is, because they said the closer the light to the actual lens causes the reflection more. I think that's what they were saying. They were saying that it was dust, and when it reflects it pushes back,
Yeah, and that's been a big thing that, when we go out, a lot of times I'll take multicolored lights with me. Just yeah, I always have a UV light with me. But blue light or green, even if you have your lasers, really you shoot it into a room and you'll see what kind of dust is moving around in the room a lot of times. And some folks don't, we're going to go in there. Well, there's a lot more stuff, particulates that you don't see moving around in the room, and using that UV or that blue light. And especially even some insects are going to really fluoresce underneath that UV, scorpions and some kind of, different spiders and stuff will actually, pop that great glow. So if you're out in the Southwest, it's great to, so you're not stepping on anything either.
I think I was also reading that, because they were talking about like dust facts, and they were saying that dust can actually hang in the air for 5 days without being influenced by anything like wind or people moving things around, which I didn't know that. That seems like a really long time for dust to kind of just be like there. Also, a primary contributor to dust was actually mold. And I don't think, I don't, maybe I'm just stupid, but like, I thought about it and I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, because most of the places that, we go to for the paranormal are old and they might slightly be moldy and they're not doing so well. So it would make a lot of sense that they have a lot of dust in them. And I think people who don't actually step foot in those places don't realize how, I don't want to say dirty because it's not dirty, but they don't realize how much dust is actually floating around in one of those places.
Right. I mean, there's just so much stuff that's out there. You really, we need to go into this place. We just need to, how many people really should be wearing respirators in some of these places? Because, we're going to get somebody in there because we're going to, revitalize the place. So let's run a tour through. Okay. It's, maybe make sure we got a little extra, we're wearing all wearing masks now anyway. So But it is, it's a lot of that stuff that's out there. I mean, but that's the same going out in the woods and doing the Bigfooting. Do you know what plants are out there? Do you know what the poison ivy is?
I don't.
Do you know what the poison oak? I mean,
I was just talking about that because so like I said, I just did my first like Bigfoot investigation type thing. And I even said, damn, I don't know any of the plants that are out here. I know nothing.
So where did you do your first investigation?
We went to, I don't really know.
Which state?
Indiana. I'm in Indiana right now.
Gotcha.
But because I've lived in Pennsylvania for some time. So I've been to the Allegheny Forest. I went to, there's this big bridge that.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Kinzu Dam. Yep.
yeah, okay,
Yep.
yeah. It was a really cool bridge because it was a train track, but it got hit by a tornado, and half of it's still up, but the other half isn't up anymore. And they have the glass bottom on
Yep.
it, and it's like I don't remember, like 300 and something feet up in the air. And I thought it was really cool to be there. And actually, I think Finding Bigfoot went there.
Yeah, they did some broadcasting from up there. That was after they did the whole thing on the Jacobs footage. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's about an hour and a half for me. So yeah, we try to get down there every so often,
Oh, awesome.
and bounce around. So
Now I think they did whale calls. Didn't they do whale calls?
yes,
Have you tried that before?
I have not. We have used baby cries, which my buddy tends to wait until I'm about 2 steps in front of the call blaster before he'll do that.
No.
And for some reason, it just gets right underneath my skin. So yeah, if you want to talk about it, I wouldn't call it scary, but yeah, it's just
creepy.
unnerving. We've used they call them the Sierra sounds. That was recorded
yeah, I've
by
heard. Yeah.
from Ron Moorhead. And that's a whole nother interesting spin on data collection. When they collected those sounds, they used analog recorders, and now we're all out here using digital for both our paranormal and our Bigfoot stuff. And a lot of that stuff is noise canceling. So what are we actually missing, or what are we actually getting? So I've even gone back to grabbing the old tape recorders there to turn around.
Yeah.
You're grabbing different data. So we use the Sierra sounds, specifically the samurai chatter, the hoots, the hollers. My buddy will do some does some great barred owl calls, so he'll do those. Sometimes we'll just sit there and be quiet, just listen. But
Is there anything that you would recommend that you've had a lot of success with?
Going out, sitting, talking with your friends, enjoying the time out there, putting some recorders outside of camp, and just listen. Yeah, and just go out like you're going to go out in camp. Sometimes we'll go silent, but a lot of times the best thing is just kind of sit around and listen to what's going on again, and put those recorders outside of camp. We've used security cameras that we've hooked up to mobile hotspots. A lot of folks like using trail cameras. I like using the security cameras. There's some really decent, cheap ones that are out there, and you can Wi-Fi them right back to your phone, and they motion sense. So you get sound and audio, and you've got live video. You're not going, oh, I got to go back and down. I mean, some of the trail cameras will do it now, but you've got live action, where some of those trail cameras, you've got, depending on the brand, how many photos you've got between. And a lot of folks want to put on video. If you go into multiple stills, you can do just about the same as the video and not kill your batteries. But you can put them out there, two-way communication, great setup. Leave them in your car or wherever you got a mobile hotspot to get you back. And we do that a lot. We've done a couple of different places where I put some, like I said, $20 security cameras, stuck them in the windows of the cars, left them a mobile hotspot, and gone down the road. It's amazing when people say, nobody comes to that area, and you're like, yeah, okay. And, watching how many cars come up to where you're at.
Yeah.
And then when they start looking in your car, and then all of a sudden you see the camera, they all kind of leave for some reason. But again, that's getting to know your area. So are you going out to hunt for Bigfoot, and nobody comes in this area, and here you've got 5 or 6 cars that have come up parked next to yours, and campers are there? Or are you doing a cemetery, and how many kids have gone up there to get in trouble, and you're on the far side of a large cemetery, or something like one of the biggest sane asylums, or an old nursing home or something like that, and because that's where everybody goes on Friday and Saturday night to get in trouble. And you think, I'm the only one there. I mean, that's kind of thing. And it's a good, double blind too, to really, is somebody messing you with you're out there, so you can have that recording of nature.
It's good to have things accounted for. Like, I'm really, really big on accounting for everything. I'm like, I need to know how many people are there, and then everybody that's there needs to be on camera. So that way I know that they're not doing something. So if something happens, we know that that's not them. And I feel like that was something that I really couldn't control when it came to the Bigfooting thing, because when I go to places, yeah, I rent out the whole building, and sometimes they have the tour guide there that's in one specific room, and they say they'll stay in that one room. But sometimes they have the cameras and they make sure that nobody trespasses and things like that. You feel relatively safe. But when you go somewhere outside, you can't just like lock it down and tell other people not to go there.
Right.
So that was something that I was worried about. I was like, are there going to be other Bigfooters responding to our calls? So I think that that's an awesome idea, having like a little campsite set up and with the security, and then even just putting a camera in your car. And I can't imagine how many like break-ins that probably has prevented for you.
Well, a lot of those places you're way out. But again, what you're collecting up at the road, you leave a recorder by your car, and it's amazing when you hear movement up by the road when you're a quarter mile away into a campsite.
Mm-hmm.
So having the ability to collect that data, it's very important. And again, you have an IR camera set up, so if you start in a motion track, you flip on the IR light. You don't have to leave it on all the time. And again, that's folks are working at, can they see an IR? Well, we can see in certain different frequencies depending on, damage to eyes. Folks have cataract
Mm-hmm.
surgery, can see in different wavelengths besides what we see. We know that, there's a lot of different animals that can see in UV, like caribou, and they think some bears and stuff that they're doing some studies on.
Yeah.
So what can we see, what we can't see? I mean, flying squirrels, if you shine UV light on them, turn pink. Why do they turn pink under
Oh, that's really
UV light?
cute.
Under UV light? And you'd be surprised how many flying squirrels there are in the Northeast that we didn't even realize are there because
Yeah.
they're nocturnal. So yeah, having that data collection is so important, and having to be able to disprove or prove some of that stuff that's out there. And again, you have a live feed and you're recording, a good amount.
Yeah.
So
Now, do you think there is a correlation between women and Bigfoot?
So there are teams that do tend to have a little more action when they do bring women out in the field. And some folks say it's the pitch of the voice. So again, like putting everybody around a campsite, let everybody talk, and it doesn't work. Doesn't it could be more calming and not as. Again, it's the watching the animals.
Yeah.
Some folks, just their demeanor and how they put folks out there really would make a difference.
Yeah.
Again, till we have one in front of us,
It's going to be hard to,
we're there, and we still got a lot of data to collect. And here's something you brought up about control and having a large group when you're out bigfooting. For evidence collection, first thing you do when you get out of the car, take pictures of everybody's shoes. That way you have the tread marks of everybody you're with.
Oh, like the bottom side of the shoes.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah.
Especially if you find out somebody in your group has toe shoes on. Again, you can.
Why do you have toe shoes on?
I used to hike with them all the time. Literally.
Are they comfortable?
Super comfortable hiking a mountain. But when I started doing this, I got rid of all of them because I don't want anybody to consider. But even though they've got the fila marks and all the little setups, but always good to turn around and take those photos of those shoes or what the footwear you're out there. Because if they're rubber boots and they're giving you round things, so you can go back and compare that to any track you might find along the way. So something to think about with your group.
That's awesome.
Also, you can say, this isn't a track of somebody in our group. So did somebody mess with our campsite? So
see, because I'm pretty much a newbie when it comes to this. So because I conduct my paranormal investigations in kind of like a different way. So I'm still learning when it comes to the whole Bigfoot thing. Do you have any other advice for somebody like me who's never done something like this but is still like interested in it?
So yeah, the first thing I would go out and get like Dr. Meldrum's Field Guide or Robert Morgan's book. Two really good, great books to start with. And Steve Cull's got another really good one there. Then I would go out and buy a tracking book on different animal tracks, so you know your animal tracks. Again, the apps that are out there, there's Macaulay's the Bird app, which if I can pull it up here, so it's bird.net. Shoot, shoot. I'm going the wrong way. See if I can go back. I'll try to screenshot it here when I bring it back up again. And that's through it's birdnet on your different Play stores for your phones. Merlin's another one. So getting to know your birds, get to know first aid, how to use a compass. Again, first aid, compass, GPS. So the basic know your trees. So it's always, the best thing is one, get a buddy, get a map, know how to read a map. That way, if you get lost,
that's important.
Do not completely rely on one cell phone. Do not rely on the cell phone map. I mean, there's some really good All Trails and Onyx, or there's some really good apps that are out there. However, if you don't have enough signal, you may not have a map.
Yeah.
Do not rely completely on a GPS. So getting to know how to use a map and a compass is very important. We went looking for moose one day and we'd started using the cell phone. It went down. We did have a GPS. That was a weekend. The GPS signals got hijacked by Garmin, so we were without. And we spent 2.5 hours at 5 miles an hour driving across the Adirondack State Park. And the only thing we saw was a squirrel while I was looking for moose. So, but I mean, I had a map, I had a compass. It just was buried in the back, and I was, being a guy and didn't want to get out and get the, technology is going to work. Again, get to know that stuff.
Yeah.
How to build a fire. Christy's in there. Yeah. It was a horrible trip for her. Yeah. Yeah.
See, like, you're listing off all these things, and I really, I can't tell the difference between trees. I can read a map. Okay, I know how to do that. Do I know how to use a compass? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I played with a compass or two. We used to sell them at the park that I worked at. They sold compasses. But I've never intentionally tried to go, in a certain direction, so maybe that wouldn't be good for me.
And that's just it. I mean, if you go out and try to geocache or something like that, you get to learn how to use compass and GPS. I mean, I do a whole presentation on tech, on the basic tech, and like I said, knowing how to use tourniquet, how to use first aid kit. And again, what are you looking for? Enjoying things, how you're going to photograph and document. So as you're going to document your EVPs and everything else, the same thing. We're going to show up at a site. I'm going to start a recorder. So I'm going to put the time and date. I don't rely on time date stamps on technology. There have been too many times that you're in a rush and you change a set of batteries and you don't redo that time date stamp.
It goes back to the first.
Yep. And you got that old recorder that you love that you bought 10 years ago because it works, and it works better than that expensive thing that you bought, that never seems to work. But I always time, date stamp, who I'm with, the weather conditions. That way I have it. And and if I'm using a DSLR or even my phone, I take a 30-second video of, hey, this is where I'm at. This is the date. This is who I'm with. And again, the weather conditions, and because that's going to come into play. Moon phases, do we hear something? Well, I'm going to go back and take a look. I heard this roar. I heard it. Is there a train nearby? Is there a construction site? We've heard loud pounding. Sounds like heavy machinery, and there's no construction site. There's no blasting. Okay, well, why is this here? Can this be replicated? Well, we've heard the same sound somewhere else. And when you talk to other investigators across the country, again, that's data that we're going to put into things. again, you find the hair, taking that tape measure and measuring things out. Again, the basic equipment. Do you have a knife? Do you have stuff to make fire? Do you know how to build a shelter? Because if you do get lost, how do you do this? All these little things. But again, this is going to work. You're in a haunted house and you trip and fall down a flight of stairs, and it's you and your friend. And can you make a splint to get yourself out of that?
I think I could do that.
Yeah. So I mean, these are all things when we go out and we collect that data, it gets important, and it's something you can, like I said, you can teach a young kid how to do it, or how to, you have your gear to take a hair sample. And there's some great folks that do some DNA kits that are out there designed specifically for, they're DNA kits, but they're quote unquote squatch kits or whatever. Mm-hmm. But again, how do we do it? And that's part of my pink hair thing, is how you're going to do that, the flashlights you're going to use. I found a piece of hair in a fence. Well, I'm going to measure where it came. All that data is very important that we're going to use somewhere down the line, because we may not be finding Bigfoot. We may find another species of something else. Mm-hmm. The guys on the West Coast in Humboldt County, and the Bluff Creek Project guys, mm-hmm. they put out a bunch of trail cameras. They found the Humboldt marten that they thought was extinct. It's like, okay, we may find something different. So documenting what we can be very important to things.
Yeah. So, I feel like it's really important to science too, because a lot of it, a lot of scientific fact is based on repetition.
Right.
So when you want to classify Bigfoot in a scientific term, you need the repetition for it. Right. So I totally get what you're saying. So moving over to the paranormal side of things, I get asked this question a lot, so I'm just going to ask it to you. Is there anywhere that's been like really scary for you?
I wouldn't call it really scary. One location I don't like the energy it gives off, so I really wouldn't go in. I've seen some stuff around it that, I won't even get the building the credit it probably wants.
Oh, geez.
Because it definitely has some connotation to it. And there's a lot of places I go, it's not evil. It's, everybody's like, oh, it's evil. It's horrible.
Yeah,
whatever. It's just, it's got some bad juju, attached to the whole area. I watched a guy run out of the house while I was standing outside, jump into his car to leave a trail of rubber down the road and not come back. But that same day I watched some black mass move around the back, and I'm trying to do the debunk. Hey, here's the light, here's the spotlight, here's the flashlight, and I watched it go inside, and I know some people that have spent time there, and it's kind of got itself pushed into some TV shows. So that house was a little funky, but like, I've been to Hinsdale, I don't know, 6 times. I've seen some interesting things there, some places in Buffalo. What I do for a living, I've been to some places that you can feel that, not so nice people have been around.
Yeah.
But no place that's really, I just won't give it the time of day. That's the big thing,
Do you have a place that's your favorite to go to?
We've been to the Star Clark Tin Shop, and it's an underground railroad museum. It's up in Mexico, New York, and that's kind of become our home away from home.
That's really cool. I don't think I've ever heard of it.
When COVID hit, it was one of the first places we could get into. We've done a lot of live shows from there. And Sheila Oslander, almost lost us here, is brought us in there a couple of times. And Christy has some really good interactions with the folks that are there. Again, I've been to Hinsdale quite a few times. And there's days I want to go there, and there's days I don't want to go there. But we've heard some weird things coming from up top on the hill. We were there one night and heard some screams, and it was a big open event, and folks thought I was call blasting, and I was not. I was packing my gear up to go home, and I went,
At
oh,
Hinsdale House?
at Hinsdale. Yeah, and there's
I filmed at Hinsdale House once, and that's where we started, was the back at the Indian tree where the
yep.
little feathers and stuff are.
Yeah.
And when we were back there, the lady was like, "Oh yeah, there's like Bigfoot activity back here," and I'm like, "Oh fuck," because I'm terrified of Bigfoot. I'm like, "Girl, if we hear anything squatchy, we're leaving. Like, I'm not staying back here." And she's explaining the story of the tree and stuff like that, and I hear a tree knock, and I'm like, "What the fuck? What the fuck? What did I tell you?" And she's like, "Oh, I didn't hear it," and it happens again, and I'm like, "Girl, what is going on?" And it happens again, and we hear something like running through the woods, and I'm like, "Fuck this, we're gone. I'm not doing it." But
Yep.
I did the house. The house was fine. I just didn't want to do outside.
Yeah, I have my up there, and sometimes I mumble. And we're sitting around a campfire, and there's a bunch of us out there, and I'm like, "Is it tranquil?" And I mumbled tranquil, and we got a yes, and then a correction to my
Oh no.
fire.
Oh, there you
I
go.
brought my recorder in, gave it to Jack Kenna. He put it on the thing, and we're like, "Yeah, that's not good." But I've seen some other crazy stuff up there. So, there's I'm always into looking at different places for their
Yeah.
architecture and stuff. Jails and that kind of thing, nursing homes. I worked in both, so that energy I'm kind of used to.
Yeah.
But there's always some interesting thing, especially if you're with the right group. And I've got a couple of friends. There's some really good mediums that when we get out those things, the interactions that they have, and then when we can go back and confirm that stuff with the historians from those locations. So.
That's awesome. I have yet to do any medium work with like mediums or like psychics or anything, so I'm really looking forward to doing that this year.
Yeah, it's I got pulled into a group at the beginning that had a couple of folks that they dragged me from the Bigfoot side of the house into the paranormal and interesting, and then I got partnered up with my co-host Christy, and she's just an amazing medium. So I'm not just saying that. She spooked me out the first time. So that's a whole nother crazy story of me trying to debunk cold feelings. And she's like, "Oh, that's your grandfather." Starts to describing my grandfather. I'm like, "That's it." Somebody said, "Hey, we're going outside." I said, "Okay, I'm out of here." Yep.
I'm
gone.
done. We're not doing that anymore.
Yep. I'll go chase crazy, furry things in the woods. But yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, she's good at what she does. So
that's awesome. So, switching back to the Bigfoot, I know that you said that you like to take trips down south to, you said Florida, right?
Yeah, actually, I'm going down in a couple of weeks, and I'll be working with Matt from Central Florida Bigfoot.
Oh,
podcast.
Awesome! So, are there any spots down there that you prefer going to, or is this your first time?
No, I last year I went down. Ironically, I was down. I was on another podcast, and Matt happened to be checking things out, and he had checked out my Instagram ahead of time. And he's like, "Hey, you want to join me?" I'm sure. So we popped out, and he's an incredible photographer and does a lot of video documentation. So a lot for I don't have a glass nearby, gimbal. He does a lot with gimbals and a lot with Lumix cameras and their study and their ability to get out there. So a lot of folks were there going, "Oh, look, there's a Sasquatch there. There's that Blob Squatch."
Yeah.
Well, he's running a very interesting camera rig that is very steady, and he can get out his 500 millimeter zoom, and then he can pull that same stuff into Adobe Photoshop.
Oh, that's awesome.
Or video and zoom in even closer. So
yeah.
Somebody sees that stump squatch. Well, he's out there showing you how you can really use technology to say, "No, that's not, it's getting the right thing." We're, everybody wants to use GoPro, but GoPro, you only get a certain distance. In fact, I just switched to a whole new headlight camera setup that runs twice as long as some of the other action cameras.
Oh,
and
that's cool.
The headlight, it's right there. So when I'm looking, I've got it right there. The only thing, and things like, like having a giant camera lens on your head. So, but running with a gimbal, which is basically it's a stabilizer. So you don't get that shocky, bouncy. And I've got one for my phone now, and it's just it makes your stuff there. And when you go out and take somebody from the Northeast and then take somebody from Florida and you merge them together and say, okay, what do you see? Because I'm not going to know, like you said, I don't know what it is. And we got down there and we found some deer carcasses that were, pulled apart, and the hair was in one pile. And
Oh no. Did I lose you again?
side, I'm over here.
Oh, okay.
I'm showing good signal. So
I don't know. It might be me.
But there was plenty of pig sign around, and there was nothing gnawed on the bones.
Huh.
But how we compare and analyze things vary. So we're going down pretty much to the same area again, and we're actually going to try something different. So we're going to work with another podcast, do some tarot reading while we're down there, and kind of take
cool.
the scientific aspect and the
it's a little mystical,
the paranormal. Yeah, we're going to see what's going to happen. So some folks want to get out. So I'm always out to get with some folks, look at different things. Crazy thing for hair collection. Again for evidence collection, we took the cheap tablecloths, the dollar tablecloths, and if you crumple them up and get that static going, just like you would a balloon, and drag that behind you, it's amazing what you can pick up with hair.
Oh, that's awesome.
Good for around the house, or good for in the woods if you need to,
yeah,
get the dog hair and everything.
Cat hair.
Yep. But again, it's we're constantly trying different things for this.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I wish you the best of luck in Florida here.
Thank you.
When you go. And I am probably going to let you go because my internet is being stupid. But before I go, would you like to kind of give a shout out to yourself and tell the people where they can find you and how they can contact you?
Sure. So you can find me on Facebook and Instagram underneath Tactical Bigfoot Research. And you can find us also at Where's My Sage on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and Twitter and all your favorite podcast locations. We're usually on Tuesday nights. But if you're again, Tactical Bigfoot Research on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I forgot about the YouTube. So most of our stuff kind of gets bounced back and forth. So I appreciate you having me this evening.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. If you want to send me the links, I can link it in the description for everybody below to make it a little bit easier. Oh, no. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, guys, I'm going to go eat. So I shall talk to you all later.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.